Hi, welcome this Sunday morning. Woohoo! Thanks for getting up and joining us to learn about the NCAA. My name is Pam Lang, and I am the West Coast Regional Admissions Officer with the University of Florida. University of Florida, we are the Gators, which I hope you didn't watch that game yesterday. I think we had 14 penalties. Oh my goodness. But anyways, we're a large D1 school. We have so many things going on. We're currently number 5 in the nation for best public university. We do not admit based on major. We are not impacted, so you should be graduating in 4 years no matter what you study at the University of Florida. Gainesville is a small regional town. It's easy to fly into, just like if you're going to Hayden or Eagle. It is about 15 minutes from campus to get there, and American and Delta do fly there, and they're bus systems that goes all over the Gainesville area. With your student ID, you ride for free. So that's a little bit about me. I'm gonna let Rachel introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Rachel Tamponi, Associate Director of Admission and International Recruitment. I work at Merrimack College. Merrimack is situated about 30 minutes north of Boston in the state of Massachusetts. Merrimack previously has had Division I hockey in the Hockey East, and then we also just recently transitioned from Division II NCAA to Division I in the Northeast Conference. So I'm definitely going to be able to provide some perspective, both D1, D2, and the previous institution I worked for is also Division III. And just to kick it off, I'm going to go over just some of the topics that we're going to cover today. So we're going to go over some quick facts about the recruitment process, who plays NCAA sports in college. We're going to talk a little bit about the differences between all the different divisions within the NCAA. We're going to talk about scholarship opportunities that may be associated with each opportunity. We're going to talk about the different recruitment terminology, things that you might hear from coaches, things you might hear in school. We're also going to talk about the timeline for recruitment, how it may vary by sport. We're going to talk about NCAA eligibility, and then we're going to talk about the recruitment process, how to go about getting recruited, how to get on a coach's radar. And then we're also going to talk about the role that we play in the admission office, working with coaches and working with students throughout the recruitment process. And we're going to end with some helpful links for the NCAA. So hope everyone enjoys. And at the end, we will leave the option to ask questions. I also do want to point out there is a chat and a Q&A. So if you have those questions, you can feel free to type them throughout the presentation, and we'll make sure to answer them at the end. Oh, I think you're muted.
There it is. I clicked it once and it didn't unmute. Sorry about that. So these are just some ideas about the NCAA athletes and numbers. People like numbers. Like, what are my odds? What are my chances of playing a sport professionally? Because a lot of students are like, want to go on through NCAA. So these give you some numbers to look at just for an idea. So about 2% of high school athletes are awarded some form of athletic scholarship to compete in college. So that may seem low to you, or maybe that seems high, but there are different ways to play sports in college. Not everything will receive money, scholarship money. So about 2% of the student athletes will receive that money. And then fewer than 2% of that 2% are going to go on to be professional athletes. So this just gives you an idea of how things are going to roll as far as numbers go. Just being a little more realistic that way.
Perfect. And just, I think another thing to note on this is just that 2% of students actually going on to play professional sports, you know, being a smaller number, it really points to the importance of also choosing a school that are, you know, satisfactory for your experience and for academics, and will really still prepare you for the real world after graduation, because, you know, it is always academics first, and you want to still get a really good education, even though sports are really important to you. So we're going to move on and discuss a little bit about the different divisions that you'll hear within the NCAA. So there is Division I. So the bigger D1 schools, typically they will enroll the larger number of students. They have the highest athletic budgets. They likely have the most televised games, and they have a lot of different academic programs to choose from. Division I typically will provide athletic scholarships. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It can vary sport to sport. Next is Division II. So there's a lot of growth opportunities through academic achievement. It's a high level of athletic competition. Many of these students may be first generation college students. There aren't quite as many D2 programs out there, but there are a solid handful. Merrimack was previously a D2 school, and D2 can give athletic scholarships. So that's something to note, that the majority of D2 programs will also provide scholarships. And then the Division III experience is more integrative environment. It focuses on academics while also still has competitive athletics. So if you're being kind of recruited by a D3 school, you're still gonna have that opportunity to play at a high level, but there likely won't be any scholarship opportunity or recruitment opportunities kind of directly through that. Another thing to note that, outside of the 3 divisions, most schools do have club and intramural sports. So intramural are more just for fun against other students at the school, but club sports also really have a heightened level of competition. So for example, a school like Merrimack, we have a very competitive D1 hockey team, but our club hockey teams are actually probably more competitive than a Division III team. So something just to be keeping in mind as you're looking at schools. There may also be club opportunities that are still really competitive to help you keep that competitive athletic edge.
I did play club volleyball at my undergrad and had a ball. So I still was able to compete at a high level, but I still, when you play an NCAA sport, especially a D1, it is a full-time job. So I still had a little bit of a social life and stuff like that. So scholarship opportunities, where is the money? So D1, they can give you multi-year cost of attendance. So cost of attendance includes things like books. It includes things like a minor stipend for maybe a computer. If some schools include that, and it's going to have room and board. So they're going to let you have a place to lay your head, and they're going to feed you food. So there's all these things that go on with cost of attendance. D2, they do partial athletic scholarships depending on the sports, depending on the school, what is available. And D3 offers no athletic scholarships, but a lot of the D3 schools work, their athletes are still getting money, and there's usually some way through their academics. They're earning scholarships that way as well.
All right. And next, we're going to move into the different terminology, different things that you may hear working with coaches throughout the recruitment process. So the word contact. So anytime that a coach is in touch with a player and is just saying more than hello during a face-to-face meeting. So that would be considered a point of contact. An evaluation. So that would be a coach observing a player and making an evaluation on their ability to play. There are bunch of different ways this could happen. They could come out to tournaments to view you. They could have a showcase and invite you to campus to evaluate. So there are a lot of different opportunities to get on the coach's radar that way. Verbal commitment. So this is not binding, but essentially you're saying based on what you're hearing, your conversations with the coaches, the scholarship money that will be made available to you, you could make a verbal commitment with the school. That can then become an official commitment. So when you sign a national letter of intent, or an NLI as it's known as, that makes it official, and that is the binding agreement that you're going to commit to that institution. A campus visit, so any visit to a college campus, and that can be in an official or unofficial context. And then, as we mentioned, the national letter of intent, or the NLI, it is a signed agreement for the athlete that they're going to attend either a D1 or D2 school. So that typically happens for any recruited athlete. There may also be the opportunity at the D2 or D1 level to be a recruited walk-on, to have a tryout. So there are some other options if you're not coming in through this recruitment, signing an NLI. There may still be walk-on opportunities or tryout opportunities available.
So what kind of timeline are you looking at? I get contacted by parents of like 5th graders asking me how to get started, how to get going on like their kid wants to play, wants to be a Gator football player. So really it's just high school. So 9th grade, you're going to really start thinking about it. You're going to take your courses. Even though you want to play a sport, you're still going to need to be competitive. These coaches need to see that you have academic abilities, because if they get you to campus and you flunk out of all your classes and you took a scholarship and you leave campus, then they lose that spot and they have to wait for another year to get another student in there. So they're going to make sure that you have those academic abilities. So taking those college prep courses, talk to your counselor. NCAA core courses, to make sure you are in the right classes. You have to meet this certain standard to be able to play and be recruited for NCAA sports. 10th grade, you go in and you register for a certification account or profile page with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And there's the website, it's just eligibilitycenter.org. And so if you fall behind in courses, don't take shortcuts to catch up, because you're going to need these courses. Like I said, you're going to have to complete all these courses to be recruited. 11th grade, check with your counselor to make sure you're on track to graduate on time. need to take those ACTs or SATs, and that's going to be something that NCAA was still requiring these test scores, and that's always fluid and can change at any point because we've seen how everything changes with COVID. But last time I looked at the website, they still require the test scores, so just keep an eye on that. When you sign up to take a test, when you sign up and register, there's like 5 slots you can put down the college codes to send your test scores for free. If you're thinking about playing an NCAA sport, one of those lines needs to be NCAA with the code 9999. They need to get the official scores from the testing agency. In the 12th grade, again, take the test if you need to. Make sure you're NCAA eligible by all your courses. Your high school counselor will be able to help you out a lot with that. Just make sure they are working with you. And if you are being recruited, chances are that the college might have somebody reaching out to you as well to make sure you're taking the courses and you're on track just to meet the NCAA eligibility. And then you're going to, after you graduate, you just ask your high school counselor to upload your final official transcript with proof of graduation. They're not just going to let you come right in. They're going to make sure you graduated, that you took the courses, took the grades. There's a really strong checks and balances system. They are amateurism certification. So depending on the sport you're playing, there's certain sports that allow you to have so many competitions. If maybe you swam, maybe you did Olympic tryouts, there's certain sports that have different ways to do the amateurism. So you definitely want to check on that with the schools that are recruiting you to make sure you're meeting these eligibility requirements.
All right, and then just moving on to our next slide, thinking about the timeline. So every coach at every sport, each sport has its own unique recruiting timeline. So here you'll see a sample for Division I beach volleyball, and you will kind of see that there are different periods of time where coaches can do certain things, can have contact with players, can evaluate players. So I think from your perspective, this is good to know that maybe you're not getting an email response, but that doesn't mean the coach may not be interested. They may just not be able to contact during that period. So you can kind of take a look at this calendar. You'll see there is a quiet period, a dead period, which is the time where coaches cannot talk to their recruits. During the pandemic, the dead period was extended for a certain amount of time. So just things to note, there is the evaluation period and then the contact period where they are allowed to make contact with students. So this is good to keep in mind, and you can see these on the NCAA website per sport, just to have an idea of when the timeline is for coaches, when they're able to contact you, etc.
So eligibility, this is what I was hinting at just a couple slides ago. Students must meet initial NCAA eligibility to be admitted and to play a sport at a college and university. Then students must maintain their eligibility once they are on campus in order to practice. If you have any friends that may have played a sport at college, you may have heard of how they get up, they may go to practice, they may go to classes, they're going to eat in all those different times, but then they're going to go to tutor sessions, help sessions. They're going to go watch film. So these sports, these teams, these coaches, they have a whole staff of people that are going to help you maintain these grades. Make sure you do not get behind in any of these classes. Like I said, you have to maintain this eligibility. And the schools give a report to the NCAA. The NCAA is, Rachel, you can chime in on this too. It's like a governing body. It's like a club, and everybody belongs to this club. And so the NCAA is in charge. So when you say you play for an NCAA team, then they are part of this club. And then they sort of manage football, they manage basketball, they manage all these different sports. And all the schools have to come back to NCAA. They're held accountable by NCAA to be a part of this club and be a part of this organization. So they are going to make sure you're meeting eligibility. The football team, the basketball team, the whatever club you have, those coaches are going to make sure that they have to respond to NCAA with their test scores for their student athletes. So they're going to make sure you are still doing well and you're going to pass, because that's the big thing. Remember, only 2% of NCAA athletes go on to be professional. Everybody else is going out to get a really cool job. And so they want to make sure you're getting that education.
Perfect. And then moving right along, I'm sure folks are wondering, all right, I play a sport, what do I do to get recruited? What is that process like? How do I get on coach's radar? So there's a number of things that you can do. I think, you obviously want to be playing at the highest level yourself, possibly. So whether that's for your school, playing club, playing in AAU, different higher level options, but also just letting the coaches know who you are. So the best way to do that is to start by using the website and going to their athletic page. On their athletic page, the majority of schools will have recruitment questionnaires or recruitment forms that you can fill out. All of that information goes directly to the coaches. It'll ask for some basic things like, your name, your contact information, your grade, your age, your school. If you have an upcoming schedule, it will give you the opportunity to upload tape. So, if you're kind of newer to this process, make sure that you have your games taped, you're having that edited, you're having kind of concise content that you can put in front of coaches, because that is really helpful before they come out and evaluate you. They want to see a little bit to see if it's worth their time to be able to go and see a little bit more or invite you to a showcase. It may ask you your times. It might ask you coach's contact information so they can follow up with your coach directly. So the more information you can give on those types of forms, the better. Additionally, all of the coach's contact information is listed on the website. So take a look at kind of the different titles. You might see someone called recruiting coach, that recruiting coordinator. That would probably be the best person to reach out to. Send a professional email, introduce yourself, make sure you have clear and concise tapes that you can provide them so they can watch that easily. And again, coaches are busy. They're trying their best to follow up. Many of them kind of do have that attitude of, if we're interested, we'll follow back up with you. So just kind of being aware of that, these are very competitive programs. And, you may be an all-star at your particular position, but if that team doesn't need, a quarterback, they already have a freshman and sophomore quarterback, you just may not be recruited that year just because of that. So, go ahead and look at rosters, kind of, get an understanding of what they're looking for that year potentially. But don't hesitate to email, fill out the forms. That's the best way to get on their radar.
And then role of admissions. What is our role? How do we come into this? Coaches provide the admissions office with the names of the student athletes that they are interested in recruiting. The admissions office does a preliminary evaluation for eligibility, and this is done before the athlete comes to campus for an official visit or before a scholarship is offered. And it depends on the size of the admissions office. Like for our admissions office, we have one person, that's all they do. They just work with all their athletes. Because like they said, they have to make sure they're taking those courses. They have to make sure they have the amateurism certification. They have to make sure they graduate high school at the end. So we have one person that does all this. So if we're at a college fair, and I'll let Rachel speak on her behalf because she's been at different size schools, but if I'm at a college fair and a student comes up and says, hey, I want to play football for you, there's zero I can do for that. Absolutely zero. The only thing I can do is tell you what we require as far as your grades and your courses to get you in as a Gator. And a lot of students will, if they're not being recruited and think they can walk on, then they need to make sure they're admitted as like in a big D1 school. I want to play football, but I want to be a walk-on. Well, you have to become a Gator first. Then you can do your walk-on business. So this is where we're saying, take those courses, get those good grades. It could come back to haunt you if you're like, I'm just going to be recruited. I don't care. I don't need that. But Rachel, you want to add in on anything from that?
Very similar. We have two folks in our office that focus primarily on the athletic recruitment process. They work really closely with the coaches. Again, just like I am not able to say, okay, you want to play football? Great, come on down. They aren't either. They are really here to kind of verify academic requirements, make sure students have the answers that they need. So really it is working with the coaches, but also working with the admission office to make sure you're doing all of the right things. Also, just because you're coming in potentially as a recruited athlete, you still need to follow the whole application process and apply in a timely manner. So it is still good to keep that contact. You will likely have an admission counselor that's assigned to your geographic area. That's how most schools work. So you can, of course, always contact your admission counselor throughout the process. They're there to guide you, answer all those questions. But then anything athletic based, you'll work directly with the coaches on.
Yeah, and there's certain rules that we are not allowed to. NCAA has really strong rules. So when we hold like a party in the spring for our admitted students, if we, like one year we had a swimmer and a soccer player show up at this party in Denver, and it was really cool. They were fun. They were there. And then there were some questions because the first time we had athletes show up, it's like NCAA, you can't treat an athlete special. You can't give them extra things to like come to your school. So we had to call the office real quick to make sure it's okay because we were furnishing brunch. It's like, is it okay for us to pay for their meal? And it was like, yes, because you're paying for everybody else. But there's really strict guidelines and that calendar and all that stuff. Like Rachel said, you may reach out, but you may not hear.
Awesome. So just to wrap it up, we're going to put some helpful websites and contact information up on the screen, but I do invite everyone to go ahead and utilize the chat feature. So if you would like to pop any questions in for us to answer, we're happy to do so while we're here. But on your screen, you will see the NCAA website, the Eligibility Center, and then really just a guide for the college-bound student athlete, which will answer a lot of questions for you. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat.
And we are aware that says 2020-21 guide. We realize it's 21-22. If you saw the beach volleyball, that's 21-22. But the last time I looked a couple weeks ago, they had not put the 21-22 guide up. And I'm sure because they're waiting on COVID protocols, and probably because it's changing daily, hourly. But this should get you. If you just go to the NCAA website and just search for college bound guide, you'll find it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there are still some decisions being made regarding test score requirements and different things that will kind of come out for future recruitment classes. So, be sure to check back to this website regularly just to see as updates are made over the next year or so.
So I have a direct question. It says, how are the test optional schools handling that NCAA requirement for ACT, SAT? It's an NCAA requirement, so that sort of supersedes the schools from what I see Rachel nodding her kids, because we're not test optional, but it's NCAA requirements. So you're still going to try to need to get those tests. And I just came from SoCal, so I know what's going on with testing. That's probably the tightest place. So California. So I know it's tough, it's rough, but whatever y'all can do to get those test scores, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, Merrimack's test blind, so we don't require the test scores, but if the NCAA is, then you have to take them. We're not telling you do, but they are. So from a recruitment standpoint, you would need to.
I have another question. What should video, I'm getting a lot of direct messages. So what should video submissions that are sent to coaches look like? Length, professional quality? And this is where I tell my students, and I'll let Rachel come in on this too. They're not looking for a professional. Don't go out and spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on somebody to edit your video. You probably have a buddy in history class that's really good with, you could probably just take the video from your phone or video from somebody else's recording device and just edit it. What's really nice, and we've talked to the coaches, if you have video, if you pause it, and then you like circle yourself, use a tool to circle you or arrow to draw an arrow to you, because in the video, they don't know which one you are. I'm 22 and people's backs are, they can't find it. But if you circle yourself first or draw an arrow so the coach has an idea who you are in the field, that's really good that way. Rachel, do you want to add in?
I agree. I think identifying yourself is key. I think just clear video. It doesn't have to be professional equipment or anything, just not like shaky and, hard to follow. And then kind of on the flip side too, almost over editing is not a good thing. We've had some that they went so hardcore on like the cuts and the scenes and the edits that like you lost the actual athletic ability in it. So, they just want to see you actually be able to play, identify who you are as a player. Keep it concise, have it be against higher level competition. So that's also important, just because you're dominating against, a team that's 0-12, that may not be the best. So have it be against, a higher quality opponent is always helpful. But yeah, I think those are all good tips.
I have a question that says, how valuable are sports scout camps to the process of becoming accepted as a college athlete? I think it depends on the school, depends on the camp. Some of the camps are more prestigious than others, and they will list at the camp, they'll say like the coaches from these schools are going to be here. Those are the ones you probably want to look at. As far as attending, a lot of students will go to the camps for high school students that are held at that school during the summer. They'll go to the basketball camp or something if they really want to get seen. Rachel?
Yep, agreed. I think, the individual showcases at the schools are definitely a great opportunity to get seen. The camps, again, look at who's there, but, any opportunity to get in front of people will be helpful.
Okay, this is an interesting question, and I have my take on it. I'm gonna let Rachel have her take on it too. Follow-up is, what if you don't want the admissions office to use your test scores at a test optional school, but they are part of your NCAA profile? My take on that is, when you take the test, if you're sending it to the NCAA with the NCAA code, they're getting your score. If you don't list any other school, they're not getting your score. And that goes to the admissions office. So the NCAA Eligibility Center is going to see the test score. Me as an admission officer that covers Denver, Vail, every Steamboat, I'm not going to see that score. NCAA has that. So I'm not going to be using that score. So if you don't want a school to have it, don't send it to them.
Agree completely with that. I think that's just a good reminder too, that just because you send something to me or to the NCAA doesn't mean the other person has it. So if you send your transcripts to me, you still need to send them to the NCAA and vice versa. And if you want us both to have your test scores, you have to send to both. And if you just don't send the scores to the school, we have no way to be like, oh, the NCAA got these, we're not going to add those to your application by any means.
Yeah, so we're caught up on questions right now. But yeah, so we just wanted to give you a general overview of what it's like to be in the NCAA. A lot of people aren't aware of those dates, like why isn't a coach talking to me, or how do I start? What do I do? That NCAA website, that guide for college-bound athletes, last time I looked, it was like 40 some pages long.
Long.
Another question. If you have already taken a test, can you submit to NCAA after the fact? Yes, you can, but you have to pay a fee. So when you sign up to take the test, it's free. I think it was $25 to send to any place else. Is it still 25, do you think?
I think so, yeah. You get so many sends when you take it, and then if you have to go back after, you have to pay.
Just go to that test website and log in, and I think there's something that says send my score to a new school or something. And even though NCAA isn't a school, that's what you're pretending like you're doing. You're sort of pretending like they're a school, using the school code of 9999 to send it to them. You guys have some great questions.
All right, anything else from the audience? All right, well, I think we're going to wrap it up then if there are no other questions. I hope everyone enjoys the college fair. And then there are another series of workshops after the fair taking place as well. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the fair today.
Thank you for coming. Bye. Okay, that was short.
I just removed the last one. I was like, all right, go.
Like either gonna stick him in the waiting room again or remove him.
I know. I was like, I don't know where to put him. Just get out of here.
Take the hint. Take the hint.
I think that was fine, right? That was informative. That was fine.
They don't even know where to start, so I think it was okay. And the questions were not deep, so you can tell that they have not been digging around.
No, so this was just, I think, a good overview. And I think that was the point of it too. But I should probably stop the recording, huh?
Yeah.